actually complete garbage and you're trying to tell other people to play the game. That is the worst part about it. You're one-tricking a trash hero, and you're trying to tell others how to play the game. If you ever wanted a surefire recipe for disaster, then look no further. Competitive play in Overwatch can be annoying enough as is, but things get so much worse at the end of the season. The last few days of ranked play are like an unstoppable force of nature. No matter what you do, chances are you're going to have a really bad time. But because this game was created much less as a fun pastime and much more so as a social experiment, Jeff decided to introduce the flex queue system that allows absolute degenerates to throw games on tank in order to be rewarded a priority pass that then allows them to continue throwing games on DPS, except with a shorter queue time. And I am one such degenerate. Hey listen, I read comments about how some people would love to see me play roles other than support, and who am I to deny their request? Don't blame me for using a broken system, blame the devs for thinking it was a good idea to introduce it. With that said, I always have this nagging feeling at the back of my mind that my DPS videos are kinda boring, so if you want to see my last playsum match on DPS to find out where I placed, consider letting me know by dropping a like on this video and sounding off in the comments. I just feel like because my support is stronger than my DPS that me off-rolling can end up a bit underwhelming, but if you guys want to see it then I'll get to working on that video. Anyway, leading up to set DPS placement, of course I wanted to get some priority passes in order to shorten my queue time, and boy howdy if that wasn't ever the worst decision I have ever made. I'm usually all about highlighting the positive aspects of Overwatch and show you guys how I can still end up having fun even in a meta that is widely considered to be awful. But never did I expect things to turn out so horribly when I hit that Q button. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to see my mental state deteriorate in real time as our story today takes us back to Rialto. Wait, have we ever had a full-blown episode on Rialto? Now, I will be the first to admit that tank isn't exactly my strongest role. I really enjoy playing characters that allow you to tape down your W key like Winston and Reinhardt, but considering the fact that neither of them can match up to the prowess of DLC heroes, of course I wouldn't get to play them. And because it is the end of the season, naturally my second tank wouldn't hesitate to insta-lock Roadhog, killing any hope of me having fun in this game. I try to avoid playing Sigma whenever I can because my experience on that hero is literally in the single-digit hours, meaning I'd be giving Hammond a shot instead. I was really hoping to finally be able to escape the dreaded double barrier meta by not queuing on my strongest role, but apparently Diamond players are just as desperate for SR at the end of the season as anyone else. But it would be very out of character for me to give up before the game even started, so I was hiding in the shadows waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. The enemy Sigma was well out of position without my meddling, but it felt good knowing that my boop would be the final nail in the coffin that sent him back to the spawn. Our defense was off to a great start, and I figured that with an opening such as that, I might be able to catch the enemy Zenyatta off guard much like their Sigma. The plan may have been sound, but between an Orisa pull, a Discord Orb, a Sleep Dart, and a Flash Hammer combo, I was very swiftly made aware of the fact that I shouldn't be playing Hammond at my current skill level. Running what is essentially a quad DPS comp is great when everybody knows how to play their heroes of choice, but since my Roadhog didn't seem to want to swap to a real tank, I had no choice but to play the only hero that has 2 characters worth of abilities in this kit. Needless to say that, whether you put me on Hammond or Sigma, I wasn't going to wow anybody with my performance, but the rest of my team was willfully unimpressed by the fact that they had nobody to protect them and continued to frontline as if they had 2 barriers in their faces. That misplaced confidence would lead to a number of very avoidable eliminations which continued to weaken our position. I tried my best to hold the front line, but things get a bit wild when there's no pressure on any part of the enemy composition. While I'm flinging between stopping their DPS, I'm shredding my supports and trying to hold my own against both of their tanks. My Mercy's resurrection allowed my Torbin to remind us that we are playing in Diamond because apparently nobody knew how to step out of the glowing hot magma that he spastically covered the floor in before dying once again. Of course, that smurfing Genji wouldn't fall victim to a Diamond play like that as he pulled out his weep stick to secure the point. The only way to break all the momentum the red team had accumulated was by getting a full reset, meaning the worst thing that could happen now was getting staggered. Our Mercy understood that very well, and it was obvious that she was trying to get out, but our Torbjorn wholeheartedly disagreed with that notion and was determined to get that ultimate back that he used on the last fight, even if it meant that he was going to die in the process. And trust me, dying he did. At least Mercy had survived long enough to be able to regroup with the rest of us, and with every competent player on the team assembled, we decided to try and retake the objective. Our Pharah secured a strong entry into this fight as she successfully picked off the enemy Zenyatta, but as much as the sky remained uncontested, the frontline was not looking quite as strong. I had the brilliant idea to try and toss a rock at the enemy Orisa, but then got deleted so unbelievably quickly that I didn't even have time to regret that decision. Thankfully, the rest of my team did just fine without me, because if there's one thing more powerful than team team play, it's unapologetically flanking while indiscriminately slamming down on the Q button. The only one who survived the special effects vomit was the enemy Genji, and we would soon learn that allowing him to get away was a big mistake. The red team was allowed a full reset leading into another teamfight at the blink of an eye, and as it turned out, our composition was very bad at handling nano blades, allowing for more progress on the objective. There was an attempt at recontesting, but trying to fight a double barrier composition while only having a single barrier of your own is already rather difficult, though it definitely doesn't help when your Torbion decides that his face is going to make for a substitute for that missing shield. The enemy team continued to tear us apart as the card made more and more progress. Simple ultimate combos would be our downfall time and time again, while nobody on my team seemed to be willing to swap off the hero to give us a fighting chance. But not all hope was lost, because our Roadhog was still alive and he managed to buy us some time as well as space, while my Mercy brought me back to the land of the living to continue suffering once more. Although these plays meant that we never fully reset, but since our spawn was right behind us, every elimination we got now was suddenly much more valuable than before. Trading 1 for 1 would be a favorable transaction for us, as the attackers had a long way to the objective, meaning at last the 2CP on wheels nature would reel its ugly head, allowing us to stay in the game. And because I am a video game warlord prodigy, it only took that long for me to warm up on a hero that I've barely ever played. My game sense heightened and my mechanics followed suit as I put a yet unprecedented Sigma performance on display, and with my godlike gameplay at the forefront, we would continue to bleed time off the clock. Since I am a Zenyatta main, it really wasn't far-fetched to suggest that I would also do well on Sigma. After all, both of them are floating characters that wield the power of balls to beat their enemies into submission. But as we all know, confidence is a flimsy shield, and it was that dominating performance that led me to push too far with the intention of using my ultimate early, while severely underestimating the amount of damage that the enemies had at their disposal. Since I was the only player on our team that wasn't constantly flanking, me getting eliminated meant that nobody on my team would contest the card. Our defense was broken and it was now our time to attack, though it is a dang shame that we didn't manage to full halt. If you have been paying any attention at all, you'll know that I was not having a great time in this match. I mean, heck, I wasn't even supposed to care about it. All I wanted was to get my priority pass so that I can finish my DPS placement, and instead, I felt like I was the only one on my team who was actually interested in team play. I had already given up on any of my teammates changing either their heroes or their playstyle, and since my Sigma experience was so limited, I wouldn't be able to deliver the carry performance that a composition like this needed. I suppose there's no reason to complain about it. I won't be able to get myself to not care about a ranked match even at the end of the season, as much as I won't be able to get my Torbjorn to stop frontlining. With that said, spamming insane amounts of damage down the choke point was eventually about to net him an elimination, and in this case, the timing couldn't have been any better. The only unfortunate thing is that as soon as he did something useful, he had to compensate for it by running it down mid again. Thankfully, the damage was already done. Our team had all the space in the world to maneuver as we pleased, and for what I believe to be the first time in this match, Roadhog and I were building a frontline. I mean, in fairness, that frontline hastily decided to take a fight on the flank rather than actually being on the objective, but hey, at that point I prefer having anyone next to me than dying on the card on my own time and time again. Contrary to my team, the enemies understood the concept of staggering, which their Orisa tried to avoid by resetting. Their Ashe was under the impression I could still get out, but my Roadhog wholeheartedly disagreed with that idea. Momentum was on our side now, and my teammates decided to push up to secure as much space as possible, but if you believe that a whole round of frontline deaths would cause my Torbion to stop playing more smartly, then you'd unfortunately be mistaken. Our lack of team play continued to be our downfall as we failed to make use of our strong position, and the red team came back swinging to show us how this game was meant to be played. There really isn't much I can say that I haven't already said. I called for us to regroup, but my Torbjorn didn't care as he continued to frontline to his heart's content. Another big problem was that, for some reason, the enemy team always had a bunch of ultimates to toss at us in every single team fight, and it was obvious that they knew how to use them much better than us. The cherry on top of this disaster that we call an attack round was the fact that everybody stubbornly stuck to their heroes, while the enemy team made very crucial swaps to shut us down. Small smooth brain players would tell their follower to swap because the enemy team was running double hit scan Mercy, but being the big-brained individual that I am, I politely asked my follower to go McCree in order to shut down the enemy ball. But I wasn't the only one asking for a swap. Our Torbjorn, of all people, asked me if I could swap off Sigma, and, well, just listen in on that yourself.
Can you switch your Sigma, please?
To what? Suggestions?
Take Zarya or Monkey.
Monkey's the worst tank in the game, what are you talking about? The worst kind of moron is one that speaks with conviction of a subject they clearly know nothing about. The condescending tone in his voice was already very telling, but when he suggested me to swap off the strongest tank in the game to either the weakest one in the roster, or another off tank to complement our Roadhog, really showed me that this guy had no idea what the heck he was doing. I mean, really, all those frontline deaths should have been a clear indication of that anyway. But all of that bickering between Torbjorn and me really worked in our Roadhog's favor, because true to his name, he was absolutely throwing for content in the least subtle way possible. I mean, it would be hypocritical of me to judge him for that, because honestly, I've done things like that myself, and I would lie if I said that seeing this in the replay didn't get a chuckle out of me. Hey, the content ain't gonna get itself, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it took me working on this video to understand why the enemy team always had so many ultimates at their disposal, and needless to say that this was making the game much more difficult. However, we weren't done fighting yet. Falra actually took my suggestion and made the swap to McCree, which immediately allowed us to punish the enemy Hammond rather than wasting time chasing him. We eliminated him so quickly that the enemy team couldn't even react to it, giving us an opening to use all of the ultimates that we've been holding on to. After having been held on the second point for so long, that simple hero switch gave us a second wind unlike any other. Despite my Sigma gameplay failing to carry our team due to sheer inadequacy, despite my Roadhog feeding the enemies every single ultimate in the game 5 times over, and despite my Torbjorn continuing to do less damage than his turret, our McCree, with the help of our supports, somehow successfully pushed us all the way to the end in overtime, allowing us to fight for the win one last time. This was it, our final chance to put ourselves in a winning position. The moment these doors open, every single mistake is going to be that much more detrimental, and every last bit of distance covered is going to be that much more valuable. As is custom during situations like these, the first engagement will be a calm and calculated one, with every team waiting to find an opening. The moment one team loses a player, it meant go time for the opposition to try and capitalize on it. Junk above us.
Kill him, kill him.
I got no barrier. 3 half.
Good pick.
Nice hook.
Nice pick, dude.
3 right side, 3 right side. Dude, nice one. The fight was going much in our favor. Everybody was showing the restraint not to push our luck too far while we continued to pick the enemies off one by one. We gassed ourselves up for every kill we collected to keep our morale as high as possible, but the red team wasn't out of the game just yet. Despite us putting our differences aside for the sake of victory, the enemy's team play was still far superior to ours. It didn't take any insane carry performances more than it took simple combos to start tearing us apart. But either way, we had pushed the card very far for a team that really should have lost in the previous round. Though attacking is one thing, we still had to make use of all that space we covered by stopping the enemies from surpassing us. After spending 20 minutes in this lobby, nobody was willing to just give up the crown. It was time for a victory royale, and whether we deserved to have it or not, we weren't just gonna hand it to the red team without a fight. The start to this round was much more explosive than the previous one. Opting for a Hammond over an Orisa, the red team was trying to find an opening without the prerequisite poking, while my Roadhog was going for a bold hooking attempt over a more safe playstyle. Their Hammond was eventually taken care of, but that aggressive playstyle of theirs was backed up by a truckload of damage that got me killed first and had my teammates follow shortly after. Every Platinum player knows that the worst thing you can do in an overtime push like that is needlessly throwing yourself on the objective. All we had to do was win a single fight, so we should stay back and charge our ultimates rather than...
Let's go, Sigma, let's go!
What are you talking about? What bridge are you talking about? Why do you want to hold here? They're gonna boop us off, they have a ball! Now, I'm the last person to say I told you so, but, well, it came exactly as I predicted. We needlessly fed ourselves into the grinder, wasting ultimates in the choke point that was simultaneously Boop City. There was no way for us to escape the minefield, and as such, we all found ourselves eliminated. Granted, as ridiculously stupid as my Torbjorn's idea was, the enemy Hammond probably wouldn't have had a minefield to use on us in the first place if it wasn't for my Roadhog once again outflanking as a walking ult battery to literally hand it to him. My frustration for the end of season in general and this match in particular was piling up, but there was enough time to complain after the game was over, so for now, I wanted to make sure that we were still the ones to take home the victory, though it seemed like my Torbjorn didn't share that notion.
No heal for Sigma, stupid bot.
Bro, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You one-trick Torb, you have no idea about tanking.
Quick. Q1, huge.
She flux. We win.
98.
Let's see half.
For one.
Get the ball.
Nice.
Dude, Torb, don't ever open your mouth. Holy crap, man. You wanted me to go Winston. He's literally the worst character in the game. You're like,
stupid
Sigma's
bot.
bad.
Yeah, okay,
Yo, guys,
stupid
let's
bot.
hold on the bridge against the Bulwark and boop us off and use mines. No, who cares about choke points? Also, you ran in front of the tanks all game long. You're actually complete garbage and you're trying to tell other people to play the game. That is the worst part about it. You're one-tricking a trash hero and you're trying to tell others how to play the game. And you're doing it poorly. At least do it well.
Stupid
Alright, you're
bot.
bad. It's cool. You're actually trash. Don't tell others to play the game, dude. You have no idea. Well, I suppose that concludes the episode. And not to break the fourth wall or anything, especially after you sat through this entire video just to get to this part, but there may have been a bit of acting involved in that one. Just to be clear, I meant everything I said to him. I'm not just gonna sit there and let some hard-stuck diamond Torb One Trick berate me about things he has no idea about. But I probably wouldn't have dignified his nonsense with a response if it wasn't for the sake of content. I'm certain the moment I said, you're one-tricking a trash hero, you already caught onto me just making this up as I go, because every high elo player should know that Torb is actually disgustingly overtuned right now. As much as I'm trying to make a more positive impact with my videos, I'm actually a horribly toxic player myself. Though if I was actually angry at that guy, you would have heard me swear like a sailor. So fine, yes, I knew full well at the time that I was going to turn that match into a video, and I figured that shouting at the Torb One Trick that felt the need to tell me how to play the game after feeding all match long would have made for a good ending. The unsung heroes of this match were my Pharah as well as my two supports. While Roadhog, Torb, and I only occasionally popped off while constantly feeding, all of them put up a solid performance from start to finish. I mean, heck, my Torb collected like 19 or 20 deaths by the end of this. At least I only get up to 16. Well, it looks like we're not so different, you and I. Anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out. Consider subscribing if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next video. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and don't be as toxic as me, alright? Peace.